Have you ever really thought about what happens to medicine after it expires? I mean, it doesn't just vanish. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the secret life of pharmaceutical waste.
Right. This is a question that starts in pretty much every home medicine cabinet. But believe me, it ends in a super complex system. So, where does it all actually go?
You might think, oh, I'll just toss it in the trash. But nope, it's not that simple. It actually enters this whole other world, a carefully regulated system that's all about one thing: safety. Okay, let's dive right in.
To really get a handle on this system, we've got to start at the top. Who's in charge here? You know, who's making the rules for all this sensitive waste?
Now, the answer to this one is huge because it basically sets the rule book for every single pharmacy, clinic, and hospital across the country.
And there it is, the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. Their main goal here is, you guessed it, to protect our environment, our water, our soil, from getting contaminated by these potentially nasty chemicals.
But hold on, the EPA isn't the only player in this game. You've also got the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and their job? Totally critical, but from a different angle. They're focused on stopping controlled substances from being diverted and abused. So you've got these two powerhouse agencies, right? The EPA is protecting the planet, and the DEA is protecting people. They're tackling the same problem, just from two very different perspectives.
Okay, so we know who's calling the shots, but how do they actually decide what's dangerous and what's not? Well, it all comes down to what you could call a waste alphabet.
Now, I know this looks like a bowl of alphabet soup, and it can seem a little confusing, but trust me, each letter stands for a very specific kind of danger, which helps everyone know exactly what they're dealing with and how to handle it.
Let's start with the P list. The easiest way to remember this one is P for potent. This is the really nasty stuff. These chemicals are acutely toxic, meaning even a tiny amount is incredibly dangerous and needs the most strict, careful handling you can imagine.
Then we have the U list. Now, this stuff is still definitely hazardous, no question. It can be toxic or reactive or even catch fire, but it's considered a little less acutely dangerous than the things on the P list.
The D list. This one's a bit of a curveball. Instead of listing out specific chemicals by name, it classifies waste based on its dangerous properties. You know, things like, can it ignite easily? Is it super corrosive? Will it react violently? If so, it probably lands on the D list. And bringing up the rear, we've got the F list. This one's for waste from non-specific sources, like industrial solvents. To be honest, you're a lot more likely to run into this in a big manufacturing plant than you are at your neighborhood pharmacy.
And boom, here it is, all laid out nice and neat. This chart just makes it so easy to see the whole system at a glance. You can see how each list is organized by the type of danger and the level of danger, from the extreme toxicity of the P list all the way over to those industrial contaminants on the F list.
So those alphabet lists cover a whole lot of ground. But some drugs are so unique, they pretty much need their own separate rulebook.
Yeah, these two categories are handled in their own special way, and it's for very important but also very different reasons. One is all about toxicity, and the other, it's about the risk of human abuse.
When we're talking about chemotherapy drugs, the big difference maker is all about how much is left. An empty IV bag with just a little bit of residue, that's called trace waste, and it's usually handled as non-hazardous. But a vial that's still half full, oh, that's bulk waste, and that falls under the absolute strictest EPA rules for hazardous materials.
And that brings us right back to the DEA. With controlled drugs, like opioids, the biggest fear isn't necessarily what they'll do to the environment, it's what they can do to people. The #1 goal is to make sure these drugs never, ever end up in the wrong hands.
This is exactly why the DEA's rules are so incredibly strict. The drug has to be made non-retrievable, which means it has to be completely destroyed, totally unusable. And that destruction process, it has to be witnessed, and there's a mountain of paperwork involved. Every single step is tracked because here, accountability is literally everything.
Okay, so we've looked at the agencies, the alphabet lists, the special cases. Now let's talk about the single most important thing you can do to manage all this waste correctly. It's called segregation.
I mean, it probably seems like a lot of extra work, right? Having all these different bins for different kinds of waste. But the answer to this question, it's the absolute foundation of this entire system.
Look, keeping these waste streams separate is what stops a dangerous P-list chemical from accidentally ending up in a regular landfill. It's what protects doctors, nurses, and waste handlers from getting exposed to something harmful. At the end of the day, proper segregation is like a firewall. It makes sure that every single type of risk is handled by the exact process that was designed to neutralize it.
And this is a really, really important point. Even the drugs that are not officially on a hazardous list, you still can't just toss them in the bin. Think about it. Do you really want antibiotics or hormones seeping into our water supply? Of course not. That's why the vast majority of these so-called non-hazardous drugs are also sent away for specialized disposal, usually incineration, to make sure they're destroyed safely. So let's just leave you with this final thought, because it really gets to the heart of this whole thing. What's actually more dangerous? Is it that super toxic chemical from the P list? Or is it one single painkiller pill that gets into the wrong hands? See, this entire complex system, it's all built to contain two very different but equally serious threats: environmental harm and human harm. The answer to that question? Well, that really all depends on how you define danger.